worry about me. I can take care of myself.
If you're in jail, who'll be there to take care of your family? Something to think about before committing a gun crime. Gun crimes hit home. This message brought to you by Project Safe Neighborhoods and the Ad Council.
WRLR is community radio.
I feel much more informed with what's happening today.
When we say community, we really mean it.
It's not like corporate, and it's just a good station, yeah?
We don't belong to some large corporation that makes a profit from this station.
Because I like the diversity.
And listeners won't be forced to listen to large blocks of advertising. Operations at community radio stations are made possible through grants and underwriting from companies within this area of operation. And donations, funds, and equipment, services, and time from area residents who volunteer their time to get involved.
It's as if it's my next door neighbor talking to me, only he's on the radio instead of next door to me.
Real people just like you.
I like them. They tell it like it is.
Local focus, local news, local music, of the local people, and by the local people.
It's different than the rest of the stuff I hear.
I love the show. I listen every day.
WRLR.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
What's going on, everybody? It's Pat Voss and Norm Marion here for you live at 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County. This is the Golden Sports Show. What's up, Norm?
It is the Golden Sports Show. Good afternoon, everyone. A beautiful day here at the Round Lake Beach train station, the only station inside a metro station in the world. WRLR, Lake County's voice.
And for everybody listening out there, just understand, we do this for fun. This is so much fun. I have a great time entertaining anybody that will listen to sports and entertainment here at the Golden Sports Show.
Indeed. And if you have something that you want to let us know about, feel free to hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on text, hit us up anywhere right here on WRLR.
All right. So here we go, guys. What we have today is obviously high school. We have high school football. We have high school football. We have NCAA football. We have professional football. We've got it all coming your way here in a second. At the bottom of the hour, guys, we have at the bottom of the hour we have NBA talk. So we're talking not only NBA but college basketball and that race that may start very, very early, especially for people like Louisville right now. Starts very early. And, of course, get into that. And today we have a special guest call-in. The special guest call-in is one of my good friends. She is a ringside boxing interviewer for Sky Sports and Three Kings Boxing. That is Taylor Christies. She will be joining us at 3 p.m. Central to discuss some boxing and upcoming fights. Obviously, Fury, Wilder 2, that's all coming up too. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and start a little bit. So you have... What's up with high school? What did we witness over the weekend, Norm?
A lot of action over the weekend as Warren went to Northern Illinois to take on the Lincoln Way East Griffins. And the Griffins were able to shut out the Blue Devils by the score 12-0. Fantastic 8A championship matchup for the big schools in the state of Illinois. And Warren... unfortunately, losing the last game of the season, finishing 13-1, giving up a mere 52 points all season long with that great defense.
Okay, so I try to stay positive all the time. Here's the thing I notice. What did I say in studio last Wednesday? We can't all be homers. We all have to root for the underdog once in a while.
What was your final score? I don't think they were the underdog, actually.
I wasn't. No. I mean, in the studio, the underdog. So as far, I don't think they were the underdog either. But was it Lincoln Way East?
Yeah, the Griffins.
Okay. I had them winning, and it wasn't I had them winning only by 3 points. I thought it was going to be 20-17. I didn't think it was going to be a shutout.
Yeah, 12-0 is an amazing feat, especially at that level. But good defense and a strong quarterback play will get you a victory every time. Blue Devils, I think, did not get their first down until late in the half or early third quarter. They were limited to like 36 yards through most of the game until a fantastic run at the end of the game. But to no avail. Lincoln Way East had a great kicker. They said kicking was going to be part of the game, special teams. And their kicker kicked, I think, a 51-yarder and a 40-yarder or something like that to make it 6-0. And then they scored in the final quarter to make it 12-0. So it was really a 6-0 game throughout most of that contest.
Okay, so we see obviously the difference between collegiate sports, professional sports, high school sports. We know the difference, all right? So it's okay that a team like Warren that was undefeated going into the final lost by a score of less than 2 touchdowns. It's okay. It's something we expect from 2 really, really good teams. That could be a possibility, a very low-scoring game, but a shutout, nonetheless.
And a big congratulations to Coach Brian McNulty on a wonderful season and to the Blue Devils. And hopefully Brian and some of his boys will be at our luncheon on Saturday afternoon up at Cornicione's in Antioch as we have the high school wrap-up show.
Oh, that'll be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of things going on, and actually I'm going to talk about some exciting news here. At the bottom of the hour when we're talking NBA, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Actually, we do have a call-in on the hotline here for 98.3 WRLR, 98.3 FM, the Golden Sports Show with Pat and Norm. We're bringing on Ed Voss.
All right.
The original Golden Voice.
Ed!
And sports watcher extraordinaire. Let's bring him on. How you doing?
I'm terrific. How are you guys?
Good.
Good afternoon, Mr. Voss.
Yes, sir. How are you, Norm?
Life's going great. Thanks a lot. Well, thank you for coming on.
Why is it every time I talk to you, I just want to go, Norm? What is it?
I haven't heard that in quite a while, sir. I love it.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I'm nothing if I'm not unoriginal. So I thought I wanted to call in a little bit, talk about some NFL football, if that would be all right.
Yeah, that'd be completely fine. Let's go ahead and talk.
Terrific.
What do you have for us?
And, the pride and joy of Illinois, Chicago Bears bear down. I actually came up with a couple of tidbits for you gentlemen.
Well, I got a funny feeling they have a chance tomorrow. Don't you think so, Ed?
Well, here's the deal. So on the downside, it was just put out that Prince Amukamara is doubtful. So 25% chance that he'll play. So he's probably out.
Right.
Good side is that this Bears defense, even without Akeem Hicks, who, by the way, starts practicing again next week to potentially play in Green Bay, this defense this year is allowing less points than the stellar defense last year.
That's simply amazing when you think about it.
But the offense is not coming through when it needs to.
Well, offense or offensive? I think it's offensive. That's my opinion.
We've got Rex Grossman throwing the ball out there. What?
Oh, my goodness. Stop it. Stop it.
Hey, he went to the Super Bowl.
Well, he did.
He went to the Super Bowl.
He should have just had a ticket, but he actually got to play in the game.
That's right.
No, listen. Anytime we get to the Super Bowl or even close to the Super Bowl, I don't care who gets us there. I'm a fan. But I think, obviously the Bears I think they have a real chance tomorrow night because Dallas is underachieving so much. And, of course, you've got Jerry Jones out there spouting off at the mouth every other, minute about how his coaching staff is all on him, that he's the one that brought them in. And, basically the old adage, I brought you into this world, kid, I can take you out. And so I think that puts a real damper on the locker room. I mean, how can you look up at the guy that's supposed to be leading you and know that the owner and, God in chief, Jerry Jones, doesn't believe in him?
He kind of reminds me of a guy who leads another thing like a nation or something. But outside of that, my sources also say that Prince is not going to play.
I'm with you, big man. I'm with you.
Yeah, Prince Amukamara has not practiced all week. I'm going to go with he's just completely out. I believe they might have added Massey to the group of injured Bears on on the team, and they're going to be without maybe 4 or 5 starters. But that's football. Yeah, and you were talking about the poor play of the Cowboys.
Next man up, right? Next
man up, come up and get them. Zach Prescott last week on Turkey Day really didn't look good at all.
He did not. No, he was. He had some time in the beginning and was, he was pulling, Mitch Trubisky. He had some time and he was dancing around and moving here and moving there, but wasn't doing anything definitive. And then later on, he didn't have the time.
Yeah, he was stuck in the pocket very much.
Yeah, it was not good. So I'm hoping, and I know I'm a homer, and I know all of that stuff, but listen, I would love to see them beat Dallas just because.
Just because. In 85, when they won 44-0 in Dallas, that was probably my favorite win of the season. Forget the Super Bowl because I knew they were going to win already. It was just being down in Cowboys Stadium and just sticking it right to the Cowboys. And quite frankly, after the last 10 years, we don't really have it that much.
No, we don't. And what was beautiful, even though the coach says every time he talks about that game that it made him feel bad that, he beat his old coach so badly. In fact, apologized to him in their little handshake after the game. But, boy, that was a beautiful win. And I know, gee whiz, we're 34 years removed from that. Why is that? That can't be possible, Norm.
Yeah, we got to stop talking about that and let's move forward. I mean, we did see the purple rain in Miami in 2007, and then we also had a nice run last year. So we got to get away from that and let's get to the now. And Khalil Mack's got to step up.
There was some great football last weekend, and I got to tell you, I don't care what anybody says. I think the Chiefs. There's a great game this weekend with the Saints and the 49ers. Oh, my goodness, what a game.
Well, and that's something I was going to bring up is these other games that are happening around, obviously, even though we're homers in a certain sense for the Chicago Bears, you have to realize the other games happening are games that are setups for possible, what are NFC Championship, AFC Championship, Super Bowl implications, which is what I was going to bring up next. But the Saints and
the Ravens last weekend, that game went down right to a field goal at the end. We have the Saints coming on. This is going to be a super game, and that's just divisional, not to mention for playoff bound, but also where they sit in the playoff picture for the potential run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we could have seen last weekend with Ravens and the 49ers a preview of the next Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Which would be a rematch.
It was a great game.
Not with the same coaches, obviously, but remember it was the Harbaugh brothers that were coaching against each other in that Super Bowl.
See, even though the much maligned, and I'm dropping off of NFL for just a second, the much maligned Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, he is one of my favorites. I loved him when he came to Chicago with his little chicken pox face, but. That was a heck of a Super Bowl between the two brothers. But anyway, I digress. There's a lot of great football. There's a lot of great football to be played this weekend. And I'll tell you what, the NFL in and of itself, outside of a few outliers, which is Bengals and, whoever else has one win or no wins.
Miami.
Other than that, I'm sorry?
Miami, the Dolphins.
Miami. Even though Miami took on the Jets and beat them, or was it the Jets?
There's another team, so you can add them to the list, too.
There's another team. But I'll tell you what, the NFL is in great shape right now. The football being played. Where they're having an issue in the NFL is the officiating. They're just having a real issue, and I don't know what come-to-Jesus meeting needs to happen with the officials, but something needs to happen. When you have a new rule where you can challenge pass interference, and in the first 8 or 10 games of the season, 0 were overturned, and then people started to huff and puff, and now the past, I believe, 8 that have been challenged. 4 of them were overturned. It just seems like there's no rhyme or reason to it.
It seems a lot like the referees are bending to the NFL's will. When somebody complains about something, here we go, we're going to change how we do things.
Well, this all came about with the pass interference play in the Super Bowl against the Saints.
The NFC Championship game last year, Saints Rams.
That was a championship. Sorry, the NFC Championship.
Absolutely, and it was a blatant pass interference play that I think the refs, I don't know how they quote unquote missed it, but they said they missed it.
Yes, that ex-NIU Husky Tommy Lee Huss was hit and spun around like an airplane on that particular play.
Oh, my goodness.
Poor Tommy Lee, great player. Unfortunately,
great player. He's a great player.
And a hell of a drummer. Anyways.
But it just seems like with the new rules, without the new rules, you can call holding on any play. As long as we keep on leaving the skirts on these players, we're not going to see any hard hitting. And if we see any hard hitting, the paper goes to fly.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I played ball all through high school. I played at Western Illinois University. And yes, I'm a leatherneck. And it's just, I'll tell you what an issue is. It's not becoming, but it's becoming more and more. Since you can't go high, where do you go? You got to go low. And these poor guys, these receivers, these tight ends and so forth, they're getting knee and ankle and so forth, those injuries, when I know a lot of them would rather, take a chance on a upper body injury than take away their motor.
Absolutely. I mean, with upper body injuries, yes, you don't want to take somebody out at the legs. And here's the last thing that I wanted to ask you. If you have a pick, obviously, and we know you're a homer, and most of us here are like that at the station. Bears, Cowboys tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Who wins and by what margin?
Sure. So right now the Bears are 3-point underdogs. Right now the Dallas Cowboys Dallas Cowboys have only been underdogs in one game this year. And that was when they went to Foxborough. They've been favored every week other than that, and they haven't covered the last 6 or 7 games. So I'm taking the Bears in an outright win, and I am calling it. I am going to call it 17-10.
17-10
The Bears are going to score 17 points.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the offense is going to score 17 points.
Well, there you go. That's a good one.
I'm thinking the defense will score 1 or get them down where it's a chip, just a play or 2, from the 4 or 5. I believe that's what's going to happen.
Well, this is where I like the home turf. I'm going to go Bears 19-13.
All right, and here we go with me destroying lives and crushing dreams.
As usual.
The NFL is a sideways beast right now, and I think that with calls and missed calls and all these things happening all together, I say that the Dallas Cowboys get it done, and they get it done in dominating fashion, believe it or not, 27-10 over over the Bears.
I could see it happening. I hate it, but
yeah, you're right.
I hate it.
As much as I hate the boy doing that to me, he is right.
Well, and that's the thing.
Well, Dad, you got to stop letting him slide. You know, maybe crack that whip a little bit over the radio waves. There you go.
You guys have forgotten more about sports than I've ever known. So you've got to respect the knowledge.
Absolutely, and here's the thing. I do appreciate, well, one, I appreciate you for calling in. I appreciate you for being on here. Here in a second, we're actually going to talk some college football here about the playoff picture and the Final Four standing over in after this championship weekend we have coming up. But, Ed, thank you so much, so much for calling in today.
Thank you very much, Ed.
Let me ask one more quick question. Norm?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Tua, draft or no?
I wouldn't. If I'm a Bears guy, I'm not taking...
No. I'm saying,
general.
does Tua go into the draft, or does he go back to Alabama?
Oh, no, he goes to the draft. No doubt about it. He's got to make sure he makes his money.
That's what I'm thinking, too.
Yep.
And I say Tua himself has said, I probably want to stick around one more year because I had injury this year. And I think that if teams are going to, and good teams are going to want to draft me, then they're going to want to draft a fully healthy, having that undefeated year again, that kind. And look at it like this. Tua, great talent, right? Great talent, but he also has a great team around him. Then when he goes out, the team loses a couple games. The team is now not even in the top 5. The team is not making the
not even in the top 10.
Not even top 10, and not making the Final Four. So I just don't see why he would, because if he does, I see another thing like Cleveland or a crappy team like the Titans picking him up and him having no career like Marcus Mariota.
Grab the money, get an agent. I'm sorry, Ed. Get an agent.
No, I was just going to say,
grab the money.
I'll leave you with this. He's a great talent, but he can't make it through a season without injury.
Correct.
Absolutely, and this is why I'm saying let's see if he can have a good season next season, because I don't think if I was a betting GM, I would not bet on Tua.
Yeah, don't waste the 14 games. Get ready, be healthy, go to the spring training camps or whatever that the football players do in the spring, and get your money and get your guaranteed money. Skip next year.
Right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your show, and go Bears.
All right, we'll see you later, Ed.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was Ed Voss, former radio personality, former voiceover artist, actually current voiceover artist, but I appreciate his knowledge on some of the sports and coming in and really chatting it up with Norm and I. What's going on, Norm?
And soon to be radio personality once again, as Norm hits the road next week.
Absolutely. Right? That's another thing before we get a quick NCAA football.
Got to give him a plug. Come on, Pat.
My father will actually be sitting in studio with me. Norm has to take off next week. So next Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m., it'll be the original Golden Voice and the new Golden Voice of Chicago sitting in studio here for the Golden Sports Show from 2 to 4 p.m., 98.3 FM WRLR.
Back to college football now, and I'll tell you what, this is going to be a great matchup Saturday, Ohio State and Wisconsin. I hate the Badgers, and I think that the Buckeyes are going to win this game, but you never know in that rivalry, those big lines, offensive lines and defensive lines, just pushing each other around, anything can happen.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is when you have teams that are facing each other in the top 4 in this championship week, there is, there is a scenario, in which Oklahoma gets to number 4, where Utah loses to Oregon and LSU beats Georgia, and those two teams, number 4 and number 5, both lose their championship game, and Oklahoma wins theirs. Oklahoma's number 4, and then 2 of my favorite teams are in the top 4, Ohio State and Oklahoma. That would be a fantastic top 4 for me.
Pat, you're seeing red. I see it in your face right now. I'll tell you what, both of those things could happen. I love the Utes, but that Oregon squad is really going to be tough to beat up on, and Utah, though, is not going away. And then, of course, Georgia, they're no match for LSU, and I believe that is going to happen. Bye-bye now to the Alabama Crimson Tide. They are out of it with the 2 losses.
Bye-bye.
Great game last weekend in the bowl game with Auburn that they call the Iron Bowl. Not really a bowl game, but kind of.
Let's call it the Saban Bowl. Let's really call it what it is. Let's call it the Saban Bowl.
The Saban Crying Bowl, maybe.
He was ticked off that they got another chance at it, and it's great because that's exactly what they lost by. But the thing is, it was an extra point try. It wasn't a 3-point try, like a field goal. So I don't know why he was crying. They lost by 3. They didn't lose by 1. So I could understand him then. But they lost because they screwed up in the last minutes of the game.
Well, I always see how Nick Saban or the Tide people throughout the world all ride the tide, and they all want to say that, well, you got to beat us in order to get ahead. We deserve to be in the top 4 no matter what. Well, you got 2 losses now, so there's nothing else to say.
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing is this, I think, is really good for college football.
No question.
Alabama going out and not even being in the top 10 is fantastic for college football because even though you have LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, and very possibly at the end of all this ordeal, Oklahoma. So you have teams that you expect to see in there now. Right. But it's okay that that's happening because it did take away the evil empire of college football, which is Alabama. Now,
the SEC.
Yeah, or the SEC. And if, by some chance, Utah wins their championship game this weekend and Georgia loses to LSU, Utah, more than likely, will be that number 4 spot, which is exactly why we need a team like Alabama not in it, so that a team like Utah could come in and see if they can prove it. Can they win a national title?
Fresh up and coming, went through the Mountain Conference, moved over to the Pac-12. If you win the Pac-12, you're one of the Big Five. You deserve to be there. And the Utes will be, I think, there come Saturday. But that Oregon Duck squad is very, very fast.
Very fast. And this is the other thing I want you guys to realize. A team that started strong, like Notre Dame, like Michigan,
like Minnesota,
none of those teams are going to be in the Final Four. And you have a possibility that the Utah Utes will be in the top 4.
Well, here you go again with that Big Five conference thing. If Utah is the champion of a Big Five conference, they should at least be number 5. I would think, but they're better than that. They're a really good squad. They play hard on both sides of the ball, and they've come a long way with their program.
So that is something I wanted to say, is saying that they might be number 5. Okay, that's great, but that is also why a lot of people believe that the NCAA playoff system should be 8 teams. Yeah. Because then automatically, the way it's structured right now, Oklahoma would be in, Utah would already be in. Then you have, LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia, or whoever, depending on what they do. And if Georgia gets knocked back to a 7 or 8 spot, they're still in the playoff.
Yeah, but then you have Notre Dame, Minnesota now with 1 loss, maybe a couple other squads saying, hey, what about us? And then you get the Alabama thing. Well, we're number 8, we're number 9.
Well, no. So now they're not even in the top 10. But yes, if
you know what I'm trying to say. So we're gonna wind up moving it forward. I think it should be an 18 playoff anyway. I really do. Yeah. It just seems like more fair for more teams to get in, but it isn't, and it is what it is for right now. I like seeing the new teams coming in, just like in 2013 when NIU went to the Orange Bowl. They may have lost, but you had fresh blood, and it almost made it look like the NCAA had a system that was working.
Well, yes, and it did for a minute until we realized, oh, crap, this needs to be an 18 playoff. Now, when we move on to, like, NCAA basketball here in a minute, we will be talking, how that playoff has expanded and how that could really, either be some upsets happening in March Madness, or are there any big teams that come through? And that's exactly what I think we should eventually see in NCAA football, Norm, is what can happen when you give an expanded playoff. What are the benefits and what are the possible downsides, if any, to revenue or what have you? What do we think? And that's something I think I would love to explore, especially next week.
That'll be a fun topic. It's a fun topic all the time because everybody has their spots, whether they went to a big powerhouse school in a big major conference or if they went to a little mid-major.
Absolutely.
Like me.
So Norm, and that's, by the way, I won't even be back for NIU. I will not be back to Northern Illinois University for hockey until January, guys. I won't be doing that, but I have a surprise announcement for anybody that does not know out there. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to be talking NCAA basketball and then NBA, and a surprise announcement for myself. You're listening to Pat Voss and Norm Marion here, 98.3 FM WRLR, the voice of Lake County, and this is the Golden Sports Show.
Everybody, I'm Axel. WRLR 98.3 invites you to spend a fun and festive night celebrating the season with our band, Axe and the Hatchet Men. On Friday, December 13th, at the original Sundance Saloon in Mundelein, we'll be playing a set filled with rockin' holiday tunes, as well as play a mix of our own original songs, current hits, and plenty of rock and roll. This year, we're playing in support of WRLR Community Radio, where local bands like us can get their music heard and their stories told. All ages are welcome. There's a student discount and tickets will be available at the door unless sold out in advance. You can secure your advance tickets now by contacting the station at studio@wrlr.fm or at another online seller to be announced soon. So save the date, tell your friends. Come on out to the original Sundance Loon on December 13th for the Axe and the Hatchet Men holiday show and help keep WRLR on the air. Ho ho, hope to see you there. Happy holidays. Just hear those sleigh bells jingling, ring ting tingling too. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together.
Parents, did you know that high school dropouts make 42% less than graduates? Someone will have to make up that difference, and chances are that will be you. That means paying 42% of their groceries.
Ooh, more candy.
42% of their dentist bills.
No more candy.
Even 42% of their therapy sessions.
It's all my dad's fault.
Save your money. Encourage your kids to stay in school. For help and advice, call 877-FORAKID. A message from the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Over there's the water. Whoosh, whoosh. And look at all this stuff I'm standing on. It's called sand, and it's everywhere.
This woman may sound silly to you and me.
It's made up of little tiny pieces of rocks. Teeny little pieces of rocks.
But to her 2-year-old son exploring the world around him, she makes perfect sense.
How does it feel when you touch the sand? Is it warm?
Uh-huh.
It's hard to hold in your hand, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Learning starts long before school does, and children are naturally curious. They want to learn, so follow their lead. Take simple, everyday moments like sorting laundry or playing on the beach and turn them into learning moments.
Is this water?
No.
Very good. This is sand. Oh, no, it's not food. It's sand. We don't eat sand.
Turn everyday moments into learning moments. Find out how at bornlearning.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Pat Voss and Norm Marion here for the Golden Sports Show, live on 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County.
Good afternoon, everyone. 2:30 on a Wednesday afternoon. Beautiful day out here. A little chilly on the outside, but easy enough to get around. Temperature in the 40s, and having a great day and talking sports.
Absolutely, and we're going to get into NCAA basketball. Of course, we're going to talk some NCAA and some NBA. Almost said NFL again. Like I'm still stuck on last half hour. But there is a surprise announcement this weekend, or excuse me, this Friday. I have been tapped on the shoulder to do play-by-play commentary and color commentary with Rusty Silber for a high school girls basketball game in Lake Villa, Illinois.
Lakes High School will be the place. Friday nights, 7 o'clock pregame, roughly 6:30, 6:45. And it'll be Lakes High School hosting our very first high school broadcast of the season. And Rusty Silber will be on the air, our fabulous sports director here. And Pat, sitting in and getting some shots in. You ready?
Oh, I am definitely ready. I haven't had a play-by-play commentary job for about 7 years. So to get back on the mic like that, to put the headset back on, and to be involved in that capacity and not in production only is fantastic to me, and I cannot wait.
Well, it's a lot of fun in high school sports in general, as you probably know. Just really nice to be around the atmosphere, the family event, the people in the stands. I noticed it all through the high school playoff section where everybody was just going crazy. And even in high school basketball, as you're indoors, the crowd is more electrifying. It gets way louder. The bands play louder, and everything is much faster. And it just seems like a really great time. And boy, the talent is really good here in Lake County this year.
Oh, I can't wait, because what I'm thinking is, more than likely, obviously there's, and guys, don't expect a, perfection, but I will try my best not to stumble and fall for you guys, the listeners, the fans of this station, to make sure that I bring you, with Rusty, obviously, Rusty and I will bring you the most entertaining play-by-play commentary you've ever heard, if I can promise that.
And if you don't see Pat right now, he's got his hand on his heart, and he's got the Bible out, and he's holding the Sports Rules Almanac, and he's pledging his loyalty to you right here on 98.3. And then, by the way, just to make fun of that, and Saturday there's high school boys action, and Rusty and Don will also be there for that one, and maybe I'll stick around for that one as well.
What time is that?
That'll be also at 7 o'clock. Pregame 6:30, 6:45.
Okay, so I will be out of studio for that. There is a company party going on. I'm not going to say all details of it, but there's a company party going on Saturday night. And so I will be at the company party, shaking hands, kissing babies, what have you. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Friday evening, you're going to be following the John and Joe show, the Lake County Sports Talk, which we air live tomorrow afternoon. That starts at 6, and then game time will be at 7. And then Saturday night, it's Waukegan at Carmel, and the programming starts at 6 p.m. So there's your high school basketball lineup for this weekend right here on WRLR.
Right, and by the way, and not to plug his show again, but I'm going to do it, Carson Beck for Lake County Sports Scoop. He has a show every Monday afternoon from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time here on 98.3 FM. He will be more than likely recapping not only the game on Friday that I'll be a part of, but also the boys basketball game on Saturday as well.
That I'll be part of. And Carson does a real nice job handling all the high school teams here in Lake County on Monday. Just an exciting week. Good party. I tried to get us off that, but you know what? 'Tis the season, folks, and I hope you'll enjoy it with us all season long. And we have Axe and the Hatchet Men playing on the 13th, Friday the 13th, up at the Sundance Saloon. That's a big fundraiser for the radio station. Let's get everybody on out, support the station. You like to listen to us, you want us to be here. That's a good way to show us how. Not to mention, you get to dance around and listen to some tunes and hear a fine band in Axe and the Hatchet Men.
Absolutely. I will be there as well. Anybody that comes out, obviously, for the fundraiser for the station, I will be out there as well. With my lovely fiance, Devana Devo of Rumor Has It and rumorhasitband.com. We'll be out there. I mean, she plays at Sundance, so that's going to be fun to go back for not a show, but to watch a show. That's going to be a lot of fun. But let's get into NCAA basketball right now.
All right, programming is done. Programming announcing is done. We got our little ins in. Join us all this season, all year long, right here on WRLR. I'm looking forward to this exciting NCAA basketball season, Pat. I know it's already started. We have a few games under the belt, right around 10. Now they play about 30, so they play forever. And it was really nice. There's a couple of things that are going on right at this moment. First, the Big Ten ACC Challenge, which has started up a number of years ago, and it's been dominantly run by the ACC pretty much throughout all the games, with a couple of exceptions here or there. Say if a Purdue gets a win here or there, or maybe a Minnesota lucks out, or an Illinois. But Duke, now Louisville, all these other teams from the ACC, North Carolina, State, they always seem to beat the Midwest pretty well when it comes to this matchup.
And what I want to say is, it's not that surprising to me that the Big Ten loses out to ACC. It's not surprising. To me, they're not basketball schools. They are football schools first. And that is why I believe the ACC has mostly ruled that competition.
Well, I kind of disagree. I think that the Big Ten being in the Midwest, you have all these players from these big cities. You have these outstanding players from Chicago area, from the Flint, Michigans, the Detroits, Columbus, Ohio, and yet they can't get enough recruits to stay north because the recruits decide, hey, I'm going to go south and play in warmer weather and for a big-name coach. I don't know. I think that they should be right there. And now we have the resurgence, what we'll call the Phoenix of the DePaul Blue Demons, as they were 8-0 earlier this week, and they're getting ready for their season as well in the Big East. They've never looked this good in the Big East.
Never, and that's something I look forward to. Is yes, I like local teams, but to your point for a second of teams or players being prospects and then going down south or to bigger teams, bigger names. Just look at Derrick Rose. who was one of the number one prospects or the top prospects here in Illinois or in Chicago rather, and he went to Memphis for a year. So he went to a team that he could have stayed here. He could have went to a local team, but he didn't. He chose to go to Memphis and then came back to Chicago for the Bulls and had a great first few seasons. So I see it, but I would hope that the return for these top prospects. To me, if you're from this area, go wherever you want to go in college, and if you can, try to make a return back home.
Well, it's always nice to have someone come back to their home squad. I don't know. You hit a rough one with me because Derrick Rose was such a great player out of high school and into college. I just didn't like the ramifications and how he got to Memphis and the Tigers. Of course, that was Pitino, right? Coach?
I believe so.
I'm not sure. But anyway, there was the things under the table again where we talked about it in football, if the guys should be paid or not, get a stipend for playing football in college. It's the same in basketball. These guys are the big names. They bring all the money to the schools, and yet they got to sit around and wait. You know what? They got Derrick Rose, and there's stories of maybe him not taking his exams or even qualifying to get into Memphis, but yet he played there a couple years and then he could go pro.
Well,
so
yeah,
I hate. I don't want to bring that down. Let's play some high flying basketball. Let's do some slam dunk in here. Woohoo!
Well, so here's the thing, and I love. It seems like Norm is a walking footnote for the show as we go along. Hey, let's not bring that up anymore. Hey, let's not talk about that. How about that? But I understand. Here's what we have for you. You have Louisville, who is absolutely dominating right now, 8-0 as far as I can remember, 8-0, and you have teams that should be big teams that are losing mysteriously, losing one game early on in the season that they shouldn't be losing, which I think worries not Louisville obviously because they're undefeated, but teams around them I think are worried because the ramifications of losing one early could show not mental deficiencies. Excuse me, could show technical deficiencies later on in the season and into the playoffs, into the March Madness, where they could slip up and be out in the first or second round.
Well, a lot of teams don't mind losing that one or two games early as long as they can get it through their conference season and then go to the NCAA. That way, the stigma of a loss, the negativity is all gone and everything. You know what I think, Pat? This year there are a number of real good recruits out there, and we're finally seeing after maybe a year or two in school before these players go pro because they don't stay for 4 years that often in college anymore. We're seeing the benefits of some nice recruiting and some of the trickle-down effect of the scholarships going out to maybe the mid-majors and maybe some of those schools that are in the big conference but maybe didn't get that one extra guy. So now maybe someone like a Memphis State or someone like a Auburn or even like a Oklahoma, a big name in maybe basketball in their region and for fine reason, but yet they might have that one extra guy, and then they can go the route. And a place like Murray State, where you have only a basketball program and the football program is not that big, where you can have one or two guys lead the way to get to the NCAA, very similar to the days of Larry Bird and Indiana State.
Well, yeah, and then you have a team a few years back like VCU.
Correct.
Who went on that huge run to the Final Four that year. So you have teams that as this quote-unquote wealth is being spread around, you do have you see the trickle effect. You see the ripples start to form a little bit and say, well how's this going to make sense? Because a lot of people that are in higher up, the hierarchy of NCAA basketball, a lot of people before VCU did the run that they did, and like a Loyola last year, you have people saying and doubting, what are going to be the positive ramifications from this? And now we're finally seeing it. So at least thank you to the people that saw far enough down the road to make this happen.
Well, some of these big players, they're going to say, well, do I want to stay at home in Chicago or Minneapolis under 2 feet of snow? Or do I want to play maybe at Stanford where it's 75 and I can play golf when I'm not in class? So you have all those ramifications. And so maybe maybe the Midwest or Big Ten or something. They might lose a couple people like that. But, we're seeing basketball is so big now, and the high school recruits that are going into the college programs are so much better. They're taller, they're faster, they're physically stronger, and it just keeps growing and growing, and I guess that's just the test of time that we're living in.
Absolutely, and we actually have some games today with the challenge. Maryland, undefeated Maryland, 8-0, number 3. And we also have a great matchup later tonight, 8:30 Central Time. You have University of North Carolina against the Ohio State. Number 6 versus number 7. Ohio State being 6 and North Carolina number 7. North Carolina is 3-point favorites. Only 3 points over Ohio State.
Where is that being played?
That looks like it's North Carolina.
Okay, well, only 3-point favorites at home. I looked for that to expand maybe a little bit. Who's Maryland playing? The Terps always run high and run fast.
Let's see. We have Maryland playing. Excuse me 1 second. We have Maryland playing, if I can get it back up again, Notre Dame, 6-1 Notre Dame, tonight at 6:30.
Oh, that's going to be a fun game, but they should win that one. I see the Terps just ruling.
You ready for one that I don't think people are ready for?
Go ahead.
Gonzaga is 30.5-point favorites over Texas Southern. I think Texas Southern wins this game by 2 points. I do not see a 30.5-point favorite winning this game. I'm sorry. It seems to be in almost all sports year of the major upsets, and that is the one I'm calling because I'm not going to call Virginia Purdue. That's kind of a toss-up when you have two teams like that, even though Purdue's not ranked.
Mm-hmm.
But then like Loyola Marymount.
Mm-hmm.
Loyola Marymount against number 20 Colorado. Number 20 Colorado is 6-0. Loyola Marymount 3-4. That might go the other way. I mean, it's not a 30-point favorite, but Colorado is 17-point favorites there. So
a lot of tradition at Loyola Marymount. A lot of tradition. And I like your upset special with Gonzaga because it always seems like Gonzaga beats a lot of little children of the poor, and then come tournament time, they make a medium run, and then they're gone. But right now, this is a time where we get to see what all the college basketball teams has to offer. Do they have good guard play? Are they strong up the middle? Do they block shots? Do they box out? Do they play their offense that their coach wants? Tommy Izzo is like a working machine right now for Michigan State. You always see him on the sidelines, and then after the game, he's always hoarse because he's been screaming too much, and then he can't do an interview. Poor guy. Anyway, so we get to see all these happenings in the games right now, and this is all setting up for their conference season, and then, of course, for the big tournament, because in the big tournament, folks, as we all know, one, and you're done.
Absolutely, and then the big tournament, by the way, we're not talking about the NIT. We're talking about March Madness, and that's the thing is watching these players progress, and then they get to a point where they're like, I'm going to declare for the NBA. And the NBA has teams like Milwaukee Bucks, now the LA Lakers for some reason.
The Clippers.
The Clippers, we all know why the Clippers are that good. Even though we have Paul George on the Clippers, I think because Kawhi Leonard is there, he is leading the team the same way that he wanted to lead the team of semi-superstars last year in Toronto. He's like, listen, I know what we have. I know how to work with what we have. Let me kind of run point on this. And trust me, we'll make good on it because the Clippers and the Lakers right now, and not to try to jump over, but the Clippers and the Lakers right now in the Western Conference are number 1 and number 2.
Yeah, and I think we saw this coming at the beginning of the season when, of course, LeBron got his buddy Anthony Davis. But going to the Eastern Conference side, that Toronto Raptors team is still pretty darn good, and they're making their move right now, and their push in this very young season. And you're going to see them atop of the Eastern Conference fighting with Milwaukee and maybe fighting with somebody else who might step up. It's still a little bit early to tell.
Well, you want to hear something fun? Eastern Conference people, you ready for these numbers? The Milwaukee Bucks are first place in the Eastern Conference at 18-3. The only other team to be 18-3 this season in the West is the Lakers. Past that, Miami is tied with Toronto at 15-5. there are two teams tied basically for second place, 2.5 games behind Milwaukee, the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors. And right behind that, Boston, the Sixers, the Pacers. You have those. Funny enough, Kyrie trying to do it on his own, was trying to do it on his own there.
Right.
You don't have KD in the mix. They're still at a 7 seed. They're at 500. They're 10-10 right now, but they're still at 500 because the team a game below them is the freaking Orlando Magic.
Unbelievable. And the way this is developing, it seems like we're going to have a couple of teams just run away with it. Mm-hmm. But watch out for that Philadelphia defense. If they get any type of push, they're going to be up there in the mix. Of course, everyone talks about the Celtics. Are they just down? Do they need to make a move? I don't know. Is the coaching the same right now for Boston? Are they playing as hard as they can? We shall see as the time moves on.
And here's going to be right here in a minute. I'm going to make my sleeper picks right now. Sleeper picks. This is not for winning the division, but I would say with the way Miami is playing right now,
mm-hmm.
they could easily be a top 2 or 3 seed in the East.
Sure,
that's one thing. But I do see the Detroit Pistons making the 7 seed this season, and guess who that's going to bring up? Mr. Derrick Rose.
Yeah, but if they make the 7th seed, who do they play in the playoffs? They play 1 or 2.
They would play number 2, but here's the thing. Number 2 could be
where were
Miami.
They gonna go?
Number 2 could be Miami. Number 2 could be very possibly, if Boston gets lucky enough, Boston or Toronto. And Toronto is still good, but not as good as they were last year to go on the run they did. And by the way, need I remind all the Toronto Raptors fans out there, Toronto was inches away from going to overtime and very possibly losing to Philadelphia in a Game 7 that would have stopped their whole playoff run before they even got to Golden State in the finals. So, without that last-second shot by Kawhi Leonard, that doesn't happen, and I don't think they have that kind of luck on their side this year.
And the Washington Nationals had a ball go through an outfielder's legs in Game 5 of the blah, 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 against the Brewers. Blah, 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 blah. Let's just move right along. I don't know. That Milwaukee team is pretty darn good. You got the Big G there, and they're going to push. And I don't see – I'm picking them to move all the way to the finals.
And this is where I see. So here's the thing I see, though. And then as a dark horse for winning the division, maybe it's not as dark horse as people think, but
division or conference?
The conference.
Okay,
thank you. The Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, because they're only 3 games back right now, about 3.5 games back right now, and the way Luka Doncic is playing could definitely propel that team. And if let's say, because Denver, so you have LA, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Nuggets. Those are the top 3 teams over Dallas right now. I could see the Clippers maybe not losing too many games, but maybe they're in a tie for second place with the Clippers. And if LA slips back, we could have a 3-way tie for first place going into the end of the season and see how that all works out. So I think Dallas, the way they're going now, after 20 games, a fourth of the first quarter of the season, Dallas could win it.
Still a little early, and there's a thing called injuries. And if you get that one guy that goes down, maybe those 2 guys that go down, that one guy off the bench that gets slightly hurt, and so the 7th or 8th guy has to play a little bit more, you start messing up with your timing and your rotation, and anything could happen. 20 games in, it's amazing how the Western Conference has all these victories, and the East looks like pushovers. But I'm sure that'll even out as the season progresses, and we'll see what happens come All-Star break.
Absolutely, and that's something I'm looking forward to, is the season progressing, and yes, injuries will happen. But what are we talking about now? Are we talking, a team like Dallas doesn't have a shot? But, of course, with Luka out, no, they don't have a shot.
Right.
But here's the thing. What if LeBron and or AD goes out for LA Lakers? Does that necessarily then even the playing field for a lot of, or level the playing field, rather, for a lot of other teams on the come-up to make a shot?
Well, we've already had that talk a couple of weeks ago on our program. Maybe on our first program where we said that, only 2 people are needed right now to run a team, where it used to be if you had 3 monster guys, you would push your way to the title. you're right. If somebody goes down, somebody else has to step up. And I don't know. LeBron's a big thing to handle. And I really don't see him going down either, though. He's such a workhorse. He has been for his whole career. Whether you like him or not, man, he's a stud.
Absolutely. But I think, like Tom Brady in the NFL, I think his age is starting to show a little bit.
Maybe
now
a little.
They have the team, so now he knows how to distribute the ball a little better, which is what is going to win them more and more games, because you have AD down low. AD can also shoot threes. You have the teams that are now taking the Golden State Warriors model and shooting mostly threes, and then driving and having that couple dominant forces to be inside. That is exactly the model in 2016 or 2015, rather, that Golden State used to win their first title. So I think the Lakers have it right. I didn't think the Lakers were going to be nearly this good to start this season.
At the beginning, I agree with you.
Absolutely. But we'll see. In the next 30 games or so, we'll see if the Lakers keep the pace. If they don't keep the pace and that age starts to show on the back end, like I think it will, then the Lakers will probably drop to about a 3-4 seed, which again will allow a team like the Dallas Mavericks to try to at least tie or maybe take the lead in the Western Conference.
And you fans of Brooklyn or you fans of the Golden State Warriors, hang in there. These people are injured. They're going to be coming back next year. No matter how bad they may look this year, even if they start looking good, don't get your playoff hopes too high. They will be a machine again come 2020 to 2021.
Absolutely. And here's the thing I'm looking at is what NBA teams have the best chance to win an NBA title this year. Clippers is one.
Lakers,
and the Bucks.
Those are the top three. I think that could go all the way right now. But I'm sure there's plenty of people that would disagree with me a little bit and maybe say, let the Raptors push a little bit. Where are the Clippers? Don't count out those teams from Texas. And look out for that one team from New York that might make a push. I don't see it. So.
Oh, absolutely. I don't see it. And I think that as we progress through.
Oh, and Miami. Season, I'm sorry.
And Miami.
We got to give the props to the Miami Heat because they're looking like they're making a nice surge.
The Miami Heat. Who thought without a D Wade or a Shaq or whoever,
Bosh,
that they're going to, and even Ray Allen, that they're going to make a possible run for the playoffs and a deep run, very possibly, depending on how the seeding works out there in the Eastern Conference. Norm. An hour's gone by already.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Through.
Just flying right through the show, folks. It's so much fun.
And what we have at the top of the hour is boxing sideline. Wow, this is in football. Boxing ringside interviewer Taylor Christies. She works for Three Kings Boxing and also Sky Sports. She will be calling in just a couple minutes.
Well, I brought my jump rope, so here we go.
Oh, we'll be talking a few things. They have a charity that she's actually a part of I wanted to discuss for a minute, and then also the couple matchups like Ruiz, Joshua 2, also Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2. You have a couple of fights there. What will Pacquiao do for the future? A couple little things here in the next half hour from 3 to 3:30. And then we are going to be talking some international soccer from 3:30 to 4. We were going to have on... WRLR Sky, wrestling magazine writer and contributor. Unfortunately, schedule's kind of mixed up a little bit, so we will go and talk from 3:30 to 4 o'clock some international soccer. So We'll be back in a couple minutes with the Golden Sports Show on 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County. I'm Pat Voss, and this is Norm Marion. We'll be right back.
Having trouble moving the ball to finish your divorce or paternity matter? Child support or maintenance payments causing trouble with your salary cap? Sue Kamen is an experienced family law attorney who can coach you through mediation or fire a pass into the end zone at trial. To make an appointment in Antioch, Huntley, or Lake Zurich with Susan E. Kamen and Associates, their number is 847-847-7354.
Parents, did you know that high school dropouts make 42% less than graduates? Someone will have to make up that difference, and chances are that will be you. That means paying 42% of their groceries.
Ooh, more candy.
42% of their dentist bills.
No more candy.
Even 42% of their therapy sessions.
It's all my dad's fault.
Save your money. Encourage your kids to stay in school. For help and advice, call 877-FORAKID. A message from the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
You don't want to miss our third annual postseason football show coming up on Sunday, December the 8th from 3 to 4:30 at Cornicione's in Antioch. It's the season that was 2019. We'll talk about it. We'll also be giving out Player of the Game awards, talk to the coaches, and a whole lot of fun. We'd like to thank Cordiciones, Sue Kamen and Associates, and O'Keefe, Lewis, and Bruno for being our sponsors this past year. Make sure you listen in 3 to 4:30 Sunday afternoon.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the top of the hour. It's 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County. You're listening to myself, Pat Voss, and my co-host,
Norm Marion. Yoo-hoo! And we're ready to go for hour number 2 on this great Golden Sports Show this afternoon.
Absolutely. So we have a great call-in guest now. It's ringside interviewer for Three Kings Boxing and also Sky Sports. It's Taylor Christies. Taylor, how are you?
Thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to hear from you. I'm glad that you're joining the show today. And welcome to the now, instead of the Golden Voice Chicago show or JTT show that you know in the past on YouTube. Welcome to the Golden Sports Show here live on radio.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Where are you at right now, Christy?
Taylor.
Or I'm sorry, Taylor.
I'm going to break him of that habit. I swear.
That's twice
Taylor.
now I've said that, and I apologize. Good afternoon.
And this is why I'm taking the mic. No.
That's okay, Norm. So I'm here in Las Vegas at the moment.
And what are you currently working on right now? What are you getting ready for right now in Vegas?
Well, there's a lot going on. Obviously, we've got the Dennis Hogan versus Jamal Charlo this Saturday. That's in New York. But I am here to interview some more fighters. And I've just recently done an interview with Taylor Swift. So she's obviously, you guys probably know that she's Deontay Wilder's fiance.
Yes.
So I've gotten a little bit involved with their charity that they have now, which is, fantastic.
So tell us a little bit about that charity. It looks like it's Boxing Wags Association, a nonprofit association by Taylor Swift. Let us know a little bit about that.
Okay, the Boxing Wags Association, they're raising money on behalf of the Spina Bifida Association. Obviously, Deontay Wilder's daughter, she suffers from spina bifida. So they've gotten heavily involved in this, and Tally's amazing. I mean, she gets involved in absolutely everything. She could sit at home and probably do nothing, being the world champion's wife. Or wife to be, I should say. But she gets involved in a lot of things, and this is obviously one of them, that she started the Boxing Wags Association, to raise funds for spina bifida. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to hear from you. I'm glad that you're joining the show today, and welcome to the now, instead of the Golden Voice Chicago show or JTT show that you know in the past on YouTube. Welcome to the Golden Sports Show here live on radio.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Where are you at right now, Christy?
Taylor.
Or I'm sorry, Taylor.
I'm going to break him of that habit. I swear.
That's twice
Taylor.
now I've said that, and I apologize. Good afternoon.
And this is why I'm taking the mic. No.
That's okay, Norm. So I'm here in Las Vegas at the moment.
And what are you currently working on right now? What are you getting ready for right now in Vegas?
Well, there's a lot going on. Obviously, we've got the Dennis Hogan versus Jamal Charlo this Saturday. That's in New York. But I am here to interview some more fighters. And I've just recently done an interview with Taylor Swift. So she's obviously, you guys probably know that she's Deontay Wilder's fiance.
Yes.
So I've gotten a little bit involved with their charity that they have now, which is, fantastic.
So tell us a little bit about that charity. It looks like it's Boxing Wags Association, a nonprofit association by Taylor Swift. Let us know a little bit about that.
Okay, the Boxing Wags Association, they're raising money on behalf of the Spina Bifida Association. Obviously, Deontay Wilder's daughter, she suffers from spina bifida. So they've gotten heavily involved in this, and Tally's amazing. I mean, she gets involved in absolutely everything. She could sit at home and probably do nothing, being the world champion's wife. or wife-to-be, I should say. But she gets involved in a lot of things, and this is obviously one of them, that she started the Boxing Wags Association, to raise funds for spina bifida, which is, it's a terrible disease that these kids are born with. So, it's just a fantastic fundraising association that I think most people should get involved with, because this is just something that's just it's such a horrible thing for these kids to go through and then have to live with later on in life.
Sorry, go ahead, Norm.
Hey, Taylor, do you have a website or something that people can get some information, or maybe where they can donate to? We'll talk about it maybe right now, and then maybe hit it before the end of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's boxingwagsassociation.org. Teal matters. So the colour for this spina bifida fundraiser is the colour teal. So it's Teal Matters.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it sounds like a lot of great work is going to be done for this very unfortunate, very tough disease and condition that many people have.
Yes, absolutely. So, and obviously, Deontay Wilder, he got back into boxing for this reason, to be able to, support and his daughter who suffers from spina bifida.
Right. And speaking of Deontay Wilder, I mean, doing something for a cause in that way, and then also in the same vein, knocking out his last opponent and looking forward to a rematch with Tyson Fury. What do you see there? Is there any reason for Tyson Fury to be worried, or do you possibly see the same outcome as last fight, a dominance except for a 12th round?
Well, I don't. My personal opinion, I've spoken to you before. I like to sit on the fence with everything, but I will say that I think he's definitely going to prove that in time to come. Now, we will say to the viewers that to the listeners, that this fight is on the 22nd of February. It's been set with Tyson Fury. I think he's going to. I definitely think that Tyson Fury's got a lot to worry about, absolutely, to answer your question.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is because watching Tyson Fury touch up Deontay Wilder in the first fight, and yes, he got caught there at the end of the fight, but the fact that he was able to avoid a lot of Wilder's shots and being able to duck under and basically smile at him through most of the fight, I think if that happens again early, does that get into Deontay's head, or does he say, I'm going to make some kind of mental adjustment and go ahead and try to knock out Tyson Fury?
Well, I think that's what makes Deontay Wilder the champion that he is. It doesn't matter what you throw at him. It's never, ever one of those mental games with him. You can throw anything at him, he'll get around it mentally. He's just so strong like that mentally. He brings a lot to the boxing world as far as mentally and physically. So that's what that makes him the champion that he is. But and he has such a huge self-belief too. I think he does a lot of visualization before he fights. He sees his knocks out before they happen. I definitely don't think that. Definitely think that Tyson Fury's got a lot to worry about. We saw him hit the canvas twice in that last fight, and now here we are coming up to the 22nd of February for the rematch.
Hey Taylor, it's Norm again, and so we got at least 10 weeks to go before this fight takes place. So there's a lot of training, conditioning, a lot of laps to run, a lot of miles to go.
And a lot of trash talk.
And a lot of trash talking, yeah. So don't sit on that fence unless you got a little wooden step on there, okay? And then you can get involved with all that. Let me ask you something. Does boxing have a season where there's more fights than other fights, or does it just go by the conditioning of the players?
Well, no, there's not really a season. We sometimes, obviously there's busier times than others, but I think it all depends on, how it all depends. You can never, ever throw a blanket on anything as far as the season goes, because what happens in boxing is, Deontay Wilder just had a fight. Who would have known that this next fight was going to be lined up so quickly, 10 weeks out, 8 weeks out, whatever it is, So as far as a lead-up to you just mentioned that you have to do all this training and this conditioning, and he's just come off the back of a fight.
Absolutely.
These guys are in shape all the time. And they have to be, because anything can happen. It all comes down to the promoters and when they can line up these next fights.
So let me ask you this: if and I know why you are on the fence. I get it. We talked about it. I understand it. But for Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury Part 2, and of course we're going to get we have to get into another fight as far as like Ruiz Joshua, but with Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2, if Deontay Wilder loses, what is his next step? Does he have a next step, or will he retire after a loss? What do you think?
I'm not too sure. I mean, I know those guys. I mean, I just interviewed Telly. They've got a lot of things coming up. I mean, I don't like to talk in that negative, what if he loses, because I don't think he's going to lose this fight. So, I mean, it's a big speculation there as far as, and I mean, I don't really know. You'd have to ask him what he thinks he's going to do. I'm actually going to try and get an interview with the two of them. I mean, who knows? You just don't know. I mean, obviously he puts his family in first before anything else, and I know that they've been approached for a reality TV show as well. So who knows?
Well, I was just going to hit on that too, Taylor, and you put it right there. I'm not going to ask him if what happens if you lose? Lose? Me? Are you kidding? Yeah, I wouldn't want to go there and stuff and everything. But
well, there's two ways to do journalism, as you guys would probably know. You can either build, me personally being in the boxing world, you can either build up these profiles of these fighters and talk about where they're going to go from here and where there's been and be positive, or you can get the dirt on them and trash talk them and bring them down. And I like to go the other way. I know this journalists probably make more money than what I do talking trash about these fighters. So I like to build them up.
Well, yeah, and that's the difference between you and I, Taylor, is I will still bring up the positive.
I love to keep him in the sport too. I mean, Deontay Wilder, he's my favourite, one of my favourite heavyweights. We want to keep these guys in the sport. We want to keep them going.
Absolutely, but I'm like here in Chicagoland, we have a couple of radio stations out here, main stations that talk mainly about they do talk positive about these fighters, but they will then turn around and say, we can't help it. There's a what if there, and there is always a what if. No matter what sport we're talking, there's always a what if. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to get people's opinions just kind of on it. No matter if you go to the next day and you're like, hey, listen, I'm positively going to charge up both fighters for this fight. But on our station, I don't mind you at all saying, hey, if there's something you see as maybe not even a flaw in someone's game, but just maybe a what-if Hail Mary scenario, and what could be a trickle effect from that so-called out-of-my-butt Hail Mary scenario.
Well, there's one thing I know for sure, and Deontay Wilder's definitely not a quitter. So, I mean, I can't see him retiring anytime soon. But who knows? I mean, I definitely don't think he's going to go out in a loss, that's for sure.
Taylor, I really liked what you just said just a moment ago about keeping things positive and not negative. I'm with you. I think I'm going to throw the wrench back at Pat and just say I'd like to keep it happy. I'd like to keep you see these people.
There's enough trash talkers in this business.
Yeah, and they give their lives. They give their 24/7 to getting ready for these fights, and they take time away from their families and stuff, and they do these extra outside of ring things for their families too, to make ends meet, because that's what they do. I like to kind of think it's more of the journey. From here to there, maybe not. Oh, boom, it's over. No. Well, how did we get here? And there's the whole fighting match that we just had, and pretty soon the replay.
Well, I was a trainer, but before I became a journalist, so I've been in the gym. I've trained these guys. I know the sacrifice that they make. I know the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into this. And let me tell you, it doesn't matter what fighter, who it is, whether an up-and-coming, whether an amateur, it doesn't matter. You've got to give them respect. You have to. unless you know, you have to be there to see what they're actually doing in the gym to get to where they are today. Man, no one should be trash talking anybody, honestly.
Well, and Taylor, that's where I think you and I differ, is because it's a different platform, right? So you are a ringside interviewer. You do that. You interview these guys live and up close and in person. You get to know them. You get to know their history. You get to know all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And you get to see like what makes them tick. Here in a studio, I get to see what you do from the interview, and then I get to provide the what if scenario. That's kind of the different platform, the different aura from a station to an actual interviewer, and that's also why, by the way, I am trying to work with this station here to get media credentials for a lot of other sports around this Chicagoland area, so that when I go and do these interviews, I will have a chance to get a taste of exactly what it is that you go through on a daily basis, and learning how to maybe slowly get that what if scenario out of my head so that it can be more of a positive build up. But of course, there are fans of our station out there and our show out there that want to hear what if he loses? So I have to satisfy, I'm trying to satisfy as many people as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. And I mean, that domino effect goes all the way down the line through our boxing fans. The same deal. I mean, there's so much money involved, especially in sports betting these days, which I think has really ruined sport. But that's just how it is. And there's a lot of people that thrive on that negative stuff. I mean, if they want to hear it, then go to another journalist. They're just not going to hear it from me, and that's just how it is. I'm not going to change the way I've done my journalism for anyone, because
Absolutely.
I've been in the gym. I know how they operate. Yeah. And I tell you now, I have a ton of respect, even from those, an amateur boxer, up-and-coming boxer, all the way, the same respect to those guys as I do for these world champions.
Hey, Taylor, with the money going up all the time, it doesn't seem ever that there's ever going to be a stop to that. And the rules, I don't know if they're changing as much. Can you give us maybe an insight on the perspective of where the fighters are in respect to the commissions and what they have to do in order to prepare or maybe be able to collect their money?
Well, it really, I mean, their job is to focus on their fights. Their job is to focus on, getting those wins. That's all left up to the promoters and managers and so forth. So, a lot of the time they don't have a lot of say in. I mean, I think it's really different too, because it's back in Australia, fighters have a lot more say. On the world stage here in America, these they don't have too much say in Australia, but here in America they have a lot more say as they get bigger. That they have a lot more say as to what happens with their purse. But, it's one of those things that it varies in different camps. Different camps are different as to how much pull and how much say they have as to their purse and who they're going to fight or what have you.
Well, and here's the thing with the boxing commissions. You do have, obviously, you have the commissions, and then you have the judges that are ringside, and it seems like a lot of judges are, and the only reason I bring this up about not crooked judges, but just the favorable decisions that seem to happen a lot of times in professional boxing here in the States, at least. And it happened with Jeff Horn in, I believe, Australia, wasn't it? Jeff Horn against Manny Pacquiao. It was a hometown matchup for Jeff Horn, and he got whooped in that fight and won the fight. So you see examples of this, and that's also why, like with Pacquiao.
Are you saying? Sorry, honey. Are you saying that Manny Pacquiao, that Jeff Horn got whipped by Manny Pacquiao?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see the same fight?
What fight were you watching, Pat?
I was watching Jeff Horn get touched up until about 10 through 12.
No, well, I disagree with that. I don't think he got whipped. So whip's a big word. But
I love it. I love it.
We just saw Dennis Hogan. He went and fought Amy Mongoya over in Mexico, and he did whip Amy Mongoya, absolutely. And I think there was even Mexicans that were like, "Well, what happened there?" Because they gave the win to Amy Mongoya and completely stripped Dennis Hogan of that world title.
See, this is why I like you. This is why I like you, Taylor, because I could say something, and for you to be so close to the action most times, basically all the time, you're so close to the action. I love that you came right in on that. You're like, wait a second, what fight were you watching? That was amazing. And Norm has one more thing for you, and then I wanted to touch real quickly before we get off of this segment for the half hour. I wanted to touch after we do this about Ruiz Joshua part 2, but go ahead, Norm.
Hey, Taylor, you're watching the fights and you're seeing the judging and you see the guys with their judging. Can you kind of tell how they're going with their scoring in the fight as it's going on? And then maybe after the fact, what is your reaction sometimes after the fight?
I think because I've been in it so long, even when someone's stripped of a title or doesn't get the point scoring that you know that they should have, I don't really get too upset about it anymore because you can't. It's starting to happen so much now that you just think, oh, here we go again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it used to be. It used to be you have to knock the guy down to win, and now it just doesn't seem like that's happening as much.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone still has an ultimate goal to get a KO
Sure.
because then it's undisputed, isn't it? So, but this I think this happens so much lately that you just kind of go, well, that's boxing, you know what I mean? And you hope that if a Mexican comes now and fights in, if he fights him again and has another rematch in a different country, I'm talking about Dennis Hogan, maybe Mongolia. We just hope that, the truth will be, that the truth will come out. We'll see that fight again. We'll see Dennis Hogan beat him again, fair and square. And there'll be no biased decisions because it won't be in Mexico. But, those guys are actually after the rematch and they wouldn't fight him again. So, it's just one of them things. I think it's boxing, it happens. And, yeah, absolutely. I get up. I get disappointed. I don't get upset by it. It all evens out in the end. You know what I mean? A true champion will always, even if he's not awarded the points decision when he should be, a true champion will always prove it somehow, somewhere along the line.
Yeah, and that's the thing, true champion, and that's something I wanted to bring up. You have Anthony Joshua versus Ruiz. That is the second fight. Obviously, first fight, Ruiz takes the titles off of Joshua and knocks him out. So what is...
I have the rematch this Saturday.
Absolutely, and that's something I'm very much looking forward to. But when you talk about true champion, the ability to bounce back, if you are the true champion and you're not just getting point advantages from the judges, then is Anthony in your estimation, is Anthony Joshua that guy? Is he the true champion that can bounce back from his previous loss?
I mean, I think he's definitely put more into this, the preparation for this fight than he ever has in any other fight, because in his mind, and he shocked the world, and Andy Ruiz Jr. when he beat Anthony Joshua, he shocked the world. Everyone looked at him and thought, well, he's overweight, he hasn't got a hope, and Anthony Joshua always looks fine. He always looks very fit, he looks very strong. So it was kind of like a shock to the world. Even if you weren't a boxing analyst, it was, even to us boxing analysts, it's a shock. But I actually picked Andy Ruiz Jr. to beat Anthony Joshua then, and I'll pick him again because Anthony Joshua, in my mind, he has all the skills. He sits on his punches nice. He's patient. He has really, really nice movement. He's very technical, but I don't think he has the heart. He looks good, but sexy doesn't win titles. And Andy Ruiz Jr., he's an animal. He's got that aggression, and you need that. You can have all the tools in the world, but you've got to have that aggression.
Taylor, I grew up with my brother Neil, who's 2 years older than me, and at one point he was 3 or 4 inches taller. And when we would fight as children, or when we would play any type of sport, basketball, football, maybe a little bit of fake boxing here or there, he'd always beat me up. Until I grew 8 inches, and then I was a couple inches taller than him, and we started evening out. but then he would start winning again. And why was that? Because he had what I call the killer instinct. And you got to have that mental attitude in a match all the time, especially in this sport.
Yeah. Yeah, too many times we see a lot of trainers and a lot of corners, they'll rate their fighters because they have that huge overhand right or that, and it takes a lot more than just that one thing. It's such a huge combination of things to be able to be world champion, and Anthony Joshua, like I said, he's got a lot of, he's got all the tools, he just doesn't have that aggression. He just doesn't, he needs to have that more mongrel in him.
Right. And Taylor, I'm going to switch the boat just a little bit here. While you're close to the ring and you're watching these fights and everything, now after the match and you get your questions in and everything, do you get hit by all the extra stuff that's flying around with the punches being thrown and all the dirty stuff? Do you have to go take a shower and everything like the boxers do?
The blood and sweat.
The blood and sweat and everything. See, I wanted to keep it clean, but go ahead. Tell us about it.
Norm really wants to ask you, have you ever been hit by a random tooth?
This will definitely gross your listeners out. But when I'm doing ringside commentary and you're sitting right on the ring, I've had blood and sweat on me. I just wipe it off and keep going.
Just keep going. And we don't worry about these other things that we hear about.
I've cupped in the gym.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's so funny.
So what I have for you, Taylor, before we wrap up this segment of the show, is for people like Manny Pacquiao, which when we talk about killer instinct, that guy has it in spades.
He does, yeah. Absolutely. He's got all the tools, Manny Pacquiao.
Absolutely. So Manny, we have the Ruiz-Joshua rematch. We have the Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder rematch in February. And then, of course, Ruiz and Joshua Part 2 is happening this Saturday night on pay-per-view, yes?
And we've also got Dennis Hogan versus Jamal Charlo this Saturday as well. That's going to be a big fight for Dennis Hogan. He's our Australian.
Is that undercard?
Sorry, no. This one's in New York.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure where things were at there.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have people that may not be huge boxing fans, or I will say very knowledgeable about boxing, like you are. You are very, very knowledgeable about boxing.
Outstanding.
So what I would say is, what words of wisdom can you impart on someone who is just a casual fan is to get more insight and knowledge into this sport, into what we call the sweet science? Where should they start? How should they make it so that maybe one day they can end up as a caller on 98.3 FM and really talk boxing with us here?
Well, I think that's a tough question. I've been interviewed that many times by so many different shows and radio talkback shows, and I've never been asked that before. That's a good question. So I honestly think that the majority of my knowledge has come from that old school feel that I've had. This was embedded in me from a very young age. I would encourage people to definitely watch them old fights, those old fights. Have a look at the style, have a look at, what made them great. And then watch these new fights. And you'll be able to sit there and be pretty much a boxing analyst just to know how these guys are going to go in the future. That's what's given me my knowledge, is having that old school background and that old school knowledge, definitely.
Well, Taylor, I've really enjoyed our talk this afternoon. Thank you for coming on with us here at WRLR. Taylor Christies, please tell us a little bit more, one more time, about the Boxing Wags Association.
Yeah, okay, so it's boxingwagsassociation.org/teal, as in the colour TEAL, matters, MATTERS. So if you'd like to go there and make a donation, I'm sure Deontay Wilder and his beautiful fiancée, Taylor Christies, will greatly appreciate it, and all proceeds go to, of course, the Spina Bifida Association.
Absolutely. So, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
This has been, of course, Taylor Christies, ringside boxing interviewer. You still work for Three Kings and Sky Sports, yes?
Yeah, well, I'm freelance. Yeah, I do a lot of work with Three Kings Boxing still, of course, yeah.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I got that right, because when I introed you, I'm like, Oh crap! I forgot to ask. Anyways, this has been Taylor Christies, of course, and we are about to take a break here in just a second. But of course, like you said, Boxing Wags Association, boxingwagsassociation.org/Teal Matters. Taylor, thank you so much.
Yep, / Teal Matters.
/ I do not want to forget the /
Thank you very much, Taylor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. All right. Again, Taylor Christies, ringside boxing interviewer, freelance for Sky Sports or work for Sky Sports, freelancing for Three Kings Boxing. Thank you so much. Of course, you are here locked in with Pat Voss and Norm Marion. I almost said Sean Marion. Norm Marion here, Golden Sports Show, 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County.
Today's sports broadcast is made possible by O'Keefe, Lewis, and Bruno PC. Proud to sponsor another season of Lake County High School sports broadcasts on WRLR 98.3 FM. Helping home buyers, sellers, and others with real estate transactions. O'Keefe, Lewis, and Bruno PC can be reached at 847-675-4790.
When I'm under, I'm weightless, floating away, and all I think about is doing it again.
Michael Swan is under the influence of his volunteer swim coach. Spending a little time coaching, he helps Michael stay off drugs. Be a coach, a mentor, a volunteer. No matter what it is, you have something to offer. Log on to helpyourcommunity.org or call 877-KIDS-313 and be an influence on the kids in your community. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
WRLR is community radio.
I feel much more informed with what's happening today.
When we say community, we really mean it.
It's not like corporate, and it's just a good station, yeah?
We don't belong to some large corporation that makes a profit from this station.
Because I like the diversity.
And listeners won't be forced to listen to large blocks of advertising. Operations at community radio stations are made possible through grants and underwriting from companies within this area of operation. And donations, funds, and equipment, services, and time from area residents who volunteer their time to get involved.
It's as if it's my next door neighbor talking to me, only he's on the radio instead of next door to me.
Real people just like you.
I like them. They tell it like it is.
Local focus, local news, local music, of the local people, and by the local people.
It's different than the rest of the stuff I hear.
I love the show. I listen every day.
WRLR.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. WRLR 98.3 FM, the voice of Lake County. This is the Golden Sports Show with Norm and Pat. Every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. We talk all sports, guys. We talk all sports. So not only in the high school local scene, we're also talking collegiate. We're also talking professional. We're talking it all. So, obviously we have things like, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer. I mean, hell, I'm even thinking about incorporating tennis in here in a few weeks, trying to get it ready, trying to get you familiar with these names that you might not be so familiar with.
And that's what we can do right here on WRLR that a lot of people can't give you. We can give you the insight on the local stuff. We can give you the insight on the national stuff in any sport. And I'll tell you what, my buddy Pat here has got us some people on that have shown us the world, literally shown us the world in both basketball, football, both. Basketball, football, boxing, and wrestling, and soon to be a lot more. So keep it right here on the Golden Sports Show, and you'll get more.
Absolutely.
Because you want more.
And by the way, guys, just so you know, anybody that wonders how these connections come through, LinkedIn is a hell of a tool. LinkedIn is a great tool that you guys need to take advantage of right now. If you're in any kind of business, this is not a promotion. They did not pay me to say this, but this is how I met my connections, most of them, through LinkedIn. And that is where you should go right now and make your profile, because I think if you have a show like we have a show, that is the place you should start. All of the connections, I believe, that came through have come through there. And this is what we're talking about. I mean, we're talking international soccer here next. It's going to be great, and let's hope that we have a good time.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of connections that you can make with a lot of various things. We don't want to promote one more than the other, but if it works, it works. And it's been a lot of fun right here on the Golden Sports Show.
Absolutely. Now, international soccer, guys. International football. Anyways, I felt it coming. I just wanted to say it's something that I think doesn't get touched on enough now in the U.S. because, of course, we have the MLS here, but we don't. It's not as big of a sport here as it is in most parts of the world. So we have American football here. We have baseball, basketball, and what have you. But international soccer, or football as it's known overseas, that is a sport that I can get down with, especially when you're talking Champions League or Premier League, especially with teams like Liverpool. What do you got?
And we're talking about the biggest sport in the world. You
Absolutely.
can say whatever you want. Commercialism has really made it so we can put American sports on a platter on television, give you a format, give you a time range where you can get up and go to the bathroom, pitchers pause, and come right back to a game that's supposedly live. Well, you've just not made it live now. But soccer everywhere is phenomenal, and I got hooked on it. I really loved the World Cup. I watched both the men's and the women's play, and it's phenomenal, and I really encourage other people to get involved. Hey, it's another sport. Enjoy.
Absolutely, and then that's the thing is, when I was little, it used to be soccer didn't enter into the equation for me. It was I grew up watching baseball first.
Sure.
Then, basketball, football, what have you. But then I started learning, Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, all these teams that were great Premier League teams. Well, Man City at the time wasn't, but they were mostly all great Premier League teams that had excellent, entertaining stars. Every game you would watch, even though, of course, here in the U.S., you have to wake up at like 7 o'clock in the morning to watch a football match. But it is worth it when you have people like Wayne Rooney and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Sergio Aguero from Man City. Like, you have these great stars. It's worth waking up in the morning and seeing it live and not having it ruined for you prior to a replay.
And you know what? That's fine. And if you don't know, and if you can keep yourself away, college football has played replays during the next week prior to the next week of action during the holiday season. They put on the holiday bowl games 2 or 3 times in the one day, and then they show them all the way through to the new year because television doesn't have ratings then. So they get on all these other sports. But soccer is going to do that, and I believe the World Soccer League and the English Soccer League everywhere, the German Soccer League. You want to go over to Asia, we're going to find stuff in Japan and in China. They're all going to get this stuff to us. And you're going to be able to see not only the Europeans, but we're going to see the Asians. We're going to see everyone playing this gigantic game worldwide.
So here's the thing. You have mix-ups. We had mix-ups we were talking about a week or so ago about like Tottenham Hotspurs and how Mourinho went from who was used to be the manager of Man United.
Correct.
Just played Man United and lost because of Marcus Rashford, one of the new young stars for Man United. He's Wayne Rooney-like, but he also has a little more athleticism up and down, like stamina up and down the field, up and down the pitch. He has more stamina, I think, than a Wayne Rooney. So Marcus Rashford defeated or helped Man United defeat Tottenham 2-1. Okay, so I don't think that all moves are good moves, especially with Harry Kane at Tottenham, like we were talking about earlier,
right
on the fence.
Right.
I don't think it was a good move for I would hate to say this, but I guess it's worth it. Legendary coach like Mourinho from Man United, coaching a team that he thinks he can bring to the promised land, that just doesn't work out. That would be sad to see, but it happens all the time.
Coaches have to have players, and just because you have one or two, that does not make the full team. It does not make a full field. You got to have some guys not only to push the ball down the field, but to defend the other people coming at you. And then, of course, there's always the keeper. So you got to keep everything safe.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. When we talk about dominance, and we've seen Man City since 2012 be very, very dominant since they were given a lot of money from their new owners, new stadium or a new redone stadium. You have all these things happening for Manchester City that they were dominant from 2012 all the way through last year. They've won 4 Premier League titles. So I mean, come on, guys. That's 6 or 7 seasons and 4 titles in Premier League. That's really, really difficult to do. Plus, you have teams like Liverpool now that last year they barely missed out on winning the Premier League, and now they are 8 points ahead of a team like Manchester City in a full, actually 8 points ahead of Manchester City. Guess who's also tied for second place that happened to make a comeback, a return? Leicester City, which have not had any kind of rumblings since they won the Premier League a few years ago. They haven't had any rumblings, and now all of a sudden they are tied for second, 8 points back of Liverpool, and the third place team is Chelsea. As everybody would know, Chelsea's always like a hanger-on, but Crystal Palace is a surpriser at number 5, beating out Tottenham and Mourinho. At number 6.
Very surprised at that Tottenham is past, not in the top 5. Pat, do you think that the fans in Europe think of some of this domination of sport kind of like we do as the evil empire, whether it be the Yankees or the Patriots or the Wayne Gretzky Oilers?
Well, absolutely. And that's the thing is if you're a team that, like, if you're if you're a fan of Arsenal, if you're a fan of Liverpool back in the day, if you're a fan of Everton when Wayne Rooney originally started there, if you're a fan of one of these teams and you have Man United when they were on their run, or Chelsea when they were on their run, for a number of years it was either Man United or Chelsea that were winning the Premier League every year. So you couldn't get a breath there. So you're almost always in your mind saying, what am I going to place outside of the top 2 in the Premier League this year? Even going into the next year. So, yes, that is a little disheartening. And as fans, it is absolutely disheartening. Think of it like this, guys. Here in the U.S., think of it like this. If you're a baseball fan, I'll make this quick analogy. Or comparison, rather. If you are a White Sox or Cubs fan, and you know without a shadow of a doubt, which has happened, by the way, to us in prior years, you know without a shadow of a doubt you are not winning your division this year.
Okay.
Before you go into the year, before game 1 is played, you know it in your heart that you are not going to win your division this year, meaning you'll more than likely either A, miss the playoffs, or B, barely sneak into a wild card spot for the NL or AL. That, to me, is disheartening if you're a fan, and that is exactly what is happening with a lot of these Premier League fans. These football fans are absolutely nuts, by the way. They are, and when I say nuts, like good nuts, some of them are good nuts in the way that diehard fans, exactly. They will show up every single home game on the pitch. If they can travel, they'll travel to the away pitch, whichever. And by the way, for those of you that don't know what pitch means, it's the field. But there are teams that can win and come up now. But this should tell you the top 5. Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea, that's an obvious. Leicester City, and Crystal Palace round out the top 5. Nobody, I think, saw that coming.
Yeah, and we see this in sports all the time, and quite frankly, as a Chicago fan and watching baseball here, we got to rebuild, we got to take it all apart and redo this, and it'll take 2 or 3 years. Well, as a fan, I don't want to wait 2 or 3 years. I want my team to win right now. I'm paying the dollars. I want to go see that. Now, granted, sometimes you get cheaper games because the team isn't as good, and you can get those easier tickets. But in the long run, I want to push forward, and that's how I think every fan wants to see their team try to do better. Don't go into the season, hey, we're not going to do it this year, but we're rebuilding. We're doing it. I don't want to hear that stuff. You're pros. You're making big money. You're making a lot more money than me. So get out there and play.
Right, and here's the thing: when you have moves happening, whether it's management or whether it's players, you have something like in Man United where they're building a team that could win in a couple of years, but you have Paul Pogba that may be gone after this season. He may go. Honestly, during this season, they may trade him out. They may put him out on loan, and if they do, then they'll have one of their best strikers gone. And also best defenders, by the way, that people don't want to talk about for Pogba. But he is one of their best defenders as well. And if they get rid of him because they want to save some money, then that shows you, like the evil empires, well, not necessarily like the Patriots, but like the Yankees, will save a couple bucks here and there, and then they realize that it cost them in the end.
Well, it doesn't matter because they'll just pay the taxes anyway. One question I had, and you're taking it right out of my head. A striker may be gone, a player may be gone, whether it be monetarily or possibly injuries. Do we see a lot of injuries in Manchester in the league?
Absolutely. Injury-wise, I mean, there are top.
Does it play a major factor like it does, say, in football, where you got your injury report every game?
Yes, because in a lot of ways, unless you're Man City or Liverpool or like Man United or Chelsea, if you're not one of these four teams, normally you have one guy, maybe two guys that are top-tier players on your team that when you say, I'm looking for us to get a win this Saturday or this weekend on the pitch, these are the guys we go to. And unfortunately, like a Harry Kane in Tottenham, if Harry Kane goes out, that team is finished. And I don't mean they're finished, they're going to bottom of the pile, relegation, but they will be not in the top five. They won't even be in the top four near the end of the season to say we won a Premier League win. They're not going to be there. And the same thing with a few other teams in the Premier League. I mean, Leicester City, I can't tell you in Leicester City who a main top guy is, yet they are tied for second place in the Premier League right now because it's a team effort there, like Man City, like Liverpool, like Chelsea. And if they didn't have that and they only had one guy or two guys, I could see Leicester City being middle of the pack like they always are.
Let's break that down a little bit for the fans, Pat, because I know you know it. Break it down.
Was that a DX reference?
in our pro sports in America, we have conferences and we have first to last, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. In the Premier League, I believe they go on a point system, and then there's a second division, and you can rise or go back to the second division depending on your point totals.
Well, yes, depending on point totals, if you are near the end of the class in Premier League, there is other classes. There's like Class A, like Series A. There's different club levels, basically.
Okay.
And you really always want to be in Premier League leveling, even if, and to be honest, guys, even if you are the bottom two teams in the Premier League at the end of the season and you're not relegated and you get lucky enough not to be, then, and relegated meaning that you are put down to the lower league, the lower level league, which has happened to people like Wolverhampton. It's happened to people like Everton, has happened before, Southampton. But you have these teams that when the top two or three or the bottom two or three go out every year, right now, Norwich City and Watford. Watford are actually the last on the polls here by points in the Premier League right now. So if that holds through the rest of the season, Watford would be relegated, guys, and we would not see a Watford Premier League team next season.
And do you have a team that gets relegated down, then the other team comes up? Do they make a big stand right away? Do they have enough talent to do that in the Premier?
It depends. So if you're talking like a Leicester City, yes. When they first came up, when they were relegated for a couple of years, I believe, and then they came back up, they did make an instant impact because of trades they were making. And
okay, so they went out and got the guys to play in the league.
Right. They went out and got the talent.
Okay.
And then made the run, and all of a sudden people are like, well, out of nowhere, Leicester City wins the Premier League. Well, no, they did things after being relegated to make at least a stand, but didn't realize the stand was going to result in a midway point of the season in that year, them basically knowing we've got this covered.
Well, this definitely keeps your team playing hard throughout the whole season because you don't want to get dropped down and you want to be number one. So you're going to perform at your best level no matter what. And if you're not number one or number two going into the final rounds of playoffs or whatever, at least you're staying in the mid-range so you can stay in the division for the next season.
Yes, because that's the thing. As long as you stay in the Premier League, you always have a shot at the Premier League title. No matter what, because if your team, well, not no matter what, but if your management and your upper management of the team is willing to spend a little money and go get, key free agents or key trades made or key, call-ups from other leagues that may help your team be a fuller, more consistent team or more full consistent team, then they will do it. If they do it, then you guys are in luck. So any team that is not relegated in one season always has a shot to make that jump like Leicester made the other year, make that jump to winning the Premier League title, or at least finishing top 3 and making yourselves known to where the next season people are saying, well, now we take notice. Now there's more revenue. Now there's more financial stability here because people know who we are now. And that is also a big benefit of being in the Premier League overseas.
What's your program like? How are you developing? Who's your coaching staff? And maybe I'll come here now because you guys are making that move. And you know what? Maybe I want to be the difference.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, that's the thing. Great, and that I'm so glad Norm made this point, guys. Great recruiting tool. That is being top 5 or 6 in the Premier League in a season. Even if you're number 6, you're still top 10, and there's 20 teams, so you're in that top half.
Right.
And that will make enough of a bargain to say if you're not gonna, if Man City doesn't have the money right now, Chelsea doesn't have the money right now, Liverpool doesn't have the money right now. Well, I want to go play for Southampton. Arsenal could pick me up.
Tottenham. Yay.
Newcastle, like a team like Newcastle, who I think should be relegated. Like a couple seasons ago, they should have been. They are number 14, so they're still near the bottom of the pack, but they're not to relegation yet. So they will still stay above that line of 2-3 teams at the least. I think. But I think if teams like Tottenham continue to lose, and other teams, I don't ever see Tottenham falling below number like 12 if they fall that low. But if the talent pool dries up, if the Harry Kanes of the world or the Cristiano Ronaldos of the world, or hell, even a secondary great player of the world comes and doesn't step up, and their talent pool dries up, then they're done. Then like any other team that has that happen to them, they're done. It's over. Tottenham will be a number 22 or 19 out of 20. They'll get relegated, and you won't see Tottenham, which would be a huge surprise to most fans. But
very disheartening for the super fan.
The talent pool rules all.
Indeed, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. That's exactly where you're going to go, and that's where you got to start to build your whole institution, your whole organization throughout everything in the soccer world, in any sport world.
Well, absolutely, and I think with moves going on right now, Pep Guardiola from Man City, I think he does move on after this season. I don't think he stays with Man City, even if it doesn't look like they're going to win the Premier League this year. Now, they have a chance at, obviously, Champions League, and there's a couple other leagues that they could, there's a couple other titles they could claim this year, but Premier League will not be one of them. And it's okay because they're still only 8 points out from that, and even if Liverpool slips for a couple games, you could still have Liverpool winning by 3 points in the Premier League, which means one game, one win separates at the end of the year, separates Liverpool from the rest of the field. And I think it's Liverpool's year. I think they didn't win last year, so now they have something to avenge. And Man City's won 4 out of the last 7 seasons, so they don't have anything to avenge. They're sitting pretty. They know they're always going to have talent coming in and out, and we'll just see the next fresh faces in the next season or two.
Well, in the MSL, the season has just ended just a couple of weeks back. Do those players go over to Europe now and play on those teams? Can they get on those teams? Or do those teams want those players?
That depends. So you have Wayne Rooney that plays over here. You have Zlatan Ibrahimovic, which looks like he'll be, after this season that just ended, looks like he could be signing on with a Premier League team for next year. Not for this year, but for next year. And names like that, though, in and of itself, the name is big enough to get teams to want you. Unfortunately, not everyone has that big of a name or a following behind them.
Right.
Where they might be a top prospect in MLS, but when it comes to Premier League, it's a different beast. And I don't think most of the talent pool in MLS has a clear-cut shot to be picked up by a Premier League team and really get themselves noticed. Like, let's say a Seattle Sounders player gets, they win the MLS Cup, and this guy is the 6th guy down, but he is a great talent. He's not getting picked up by the Premier League. The people like Landon Donovan and David Beckham, you have to be so notable that you are the top tier of the top tier of that league for them to even want to pick you up because they realize at least you have some following, and then they can catapult you to that next level because, like I said, and like we said before, MLS, or here in the U.S., soccer is not the most dominant sport in the U.S. So because it is almost everywhere else, it'll get your name out there automatically no matter what Premier League team you get picked up from.
Well, you're going to have to earn your stripes then. No matter what happens,
Absolutely.
you're going to have to earn your stripes because you will not be accepted over there because they feel your league isn't as good as the Premier League. Let's just put it bluntly, and maybe it isn't. The talent level isn't there as of yet.
I will say as of yet, but I say that because the rest of the world views soccer or we call it soccer, they call it football. As we view that here, I think that as long as we view that as not the most popular sport and we try to make the NFL and things go above it, I really don't think I really don't think that it will be as successful or as talent pool like rich here because we don't treat it like it's the top sport. If we did, I think then you would see majority of these teams having an even shot like a Premier League or even like a Serie A.
Well, some of these owners are putting up the money. I know Tampa's, the Rowdies, got a nice new stadium down in St. Petersburg. Obviously, Seattle is a big soccer community. And then, of course, you have the money mongrels of L.A. and possibly New York.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about switching, talent and people going from one place to the other, you got some baseball for me, don't you?
Very nice, very nice. Trying to sneak in some Major League Baseball news for you here this afternoon on the Golden Sports Show. Zach Wheeler has a new home, and he has a new $120 million contract, actually $118 million, excuse me, with the Philadelphia Phillies. So 5 years with the Phillies. And I guess the White Sox were going after him. I said it last week. The Sox got to get some pitching to throw to those catchers. They have 2 all-star catchers, and they were going after Wheeler. They offered him $120. They did not get him. So there's one guy down, and there's actually a second guy down. Cub fans, don't hang your heads too low, but Cole Hamels has left the building. Cole has signed a 1-year deal with the Atlanta Braves. So if the Cubs are good next year, maybe he'll sign back. Who knows? But right now, that Braves is young, and they're hungry, and he's getting $18 million for one season.
And that's the thing, when you mention things like Cole Hamels going to the Braves, and you mention like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzie Albies and Freddie Freeman, that core there, imagine with great pitching, that core has the shot to be the AL champions. The NL champions.
Well, Hamels is a great. He could be a 3. He could be a 4. He could be a 5. He matches up very well with other teams for you because you have your strong first 2 starters. He eats up a lot of innings. He was a little bit injured last year. Will those nag on? Who knows? But for the most part, in most of his career, he's been fantastic, and I'd want him on my club. I keep on saying the White Sox, they need like a big starter, and they need someone to eat innings, someone like Jose Quintana now with the Cubs, who just goes up there every 5 games. But you need one of those guys. You need a couple of those guys to help you out throughout the whole season.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is you need the full roster. You need a bolstered roster. If you don't have that, unfortunately, the team fails, and we're seeing that a lot with the aging Cubs. And I hate to say aging, but when you look at it in terms of baseball, it is. So
they're starting to get older.
Ben Zobrist, even Jason Hayward. You have Wilson Contreras, who could go somewhere, by the way, a young, dominant catcher. One of the best catchers I've ever seen in my lifetime as a Cubs catcher.
Very athletic.
He may go somewhere for a top pitcher or hitter and a prospect or two, so we can start rebuilding our farm system here with the Cubs organization. I think Theo, on that side of things, is thinking in the right vein, maybe saying nobody is untouchable in this vein this year by doing things like that and untendering or not tendering Addison Russell. I think we all saw that coming. Obviously, with his off the field problems, and issues. I think there was no ifs, ands, or buts that he was going to go. I do like Addison Russell, though. He made it a great game, and he also was one of the main reasons we even went to a Game 7 in the 2016 World Series.
I don't even know if he's 25 yet, Pat. I'd have to look that up.
He is mid-20s.
Okay, so he's mid-20s, but I'll tell you what. He's got to get out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to relax a little bit this winter. Get your head together. Go to spring training. Forget the past. And somebody will take him. Someone will really like an Addison Russell because he adds a lot to a lineup, and he's got 10 years of good pro ball left. Easy.
Absolutely. That's something I like that we bring up is that he's got time. These players have time to develop. I think with Addison Russell not being tendered, you do have. Well, why would they get rid of Javi Baez now? Like they kind of forced their own hand.
Right.
And by the way, here's something that they mentioned on another network. I'm not going to mention who. They mentioned something that sparked my interest real quick before we get off of here, is that the Cubs supposedly in the winter meetings and all these meetings going on are one thing, obvious about their choices. And that's not something I think in Theo's mind it may be okay because he's like, listen, I have the pieces here to trade away in order to make a great farm system and try to make a deep playoff run in the next season. But when you say obvious, the fact that people will kind of know your price and be able to shop around elsewhere and get someone almost as good and not have to pay a Rizzo or a Bryant or a Javi Baez or Wilson Contreras that kind of money that they deserve, then I think showing your hand early could be detrimental in that way.
Well, and there's other players that are showing their hands early, and they're going to make a ton of money. Strasburger opting out of $100 million so he can become a free agent. $100 million in 4 years. Not enough. He's going to go out and he's going to get more.
Of course he is. He's the World Series MVP.
The Sox, they have 2 all-star catchers. So what do you do with McCann? What do you do with McCann? You let him catch every other day? You put him at first base so Abreu gets a little rest? Do you DH him all through the season? That's a nice headache to have. You have 2 all-stars, but you got to go out and get some pitchers. We mentioned Cole Hamels. I've mentioned someone like a Rich Hill from the Dodgers, someone who eats up a lot of innings and still can be dominant on that 3rd or 4th day for you.
Who used to be a Cub, by the way.
I'll let that go.
Who was not that good of a Cub and now is a better Dodger, but, yeah.
Well, congratulations, Zach Wheeler. This is just the beginning of Stove Talk football or baseball in the football season. This is the way that the MLB gets their name way up there to try to stop the playoffs for the football. But the NFL is going to really be romping in the next few weeks. We got to see what happens.
Absolutely. And Norm, I'm so glad that we made it through another great show. I mean, this is now marking, believe it or not, this is our, 4th show. So we have a month's worth of shows already together. And by the way, I'm hearing great things. I've listened to a few people. By the way,
It goes fast.
There was an avid listener of mine. His nickname is Champagne. He is an avid listener of mine on Periscope. I wanted to give him a quick shout out. I love that he's a loyal viewer there. And loyal viewers and listeners out there, 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County. This is Pat Voss with my co-host, Norm Marion.
And I'd like to say, have a great week, everybody. Enjoy Eddie Voss next week with Pat. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. So this has been the Golden Sports Show where fact and opinion kind of collide here. Again, I've been Pat Voss's Norm Marion, and we'll see you then next week where my father, Ed Voss, will be sitting in studio. Again, thank you to our call-in guest, again, Ed Voss, and also ringside boxing interviewer Taylor Christies from Three Kings and Sky Sports. We'll see you next week.
You don't want to miss our 3rd annual postseason football show coming up on Sunday, December the 8th from 3 to 4:30 at Cornicione's in Antioch. It's the season that was 2019. We'll talk about it. We'll also be giving out Player of the Game awards, talk to the coaches, and a whole lot of fun. We'd like to thank Cornicione's, Sue Kamen and Associates, and O'Keefe, Lewis, and Bruno for being our sponsors this past year. Make sure you listen in 3 to 4:30 Sunday afternoon.
When I'm under, I'm weightless, floating away, and all I think about is doing it again.
Michael Swan is under the influence. of his volunteer swim coach. Spending a little time coaching, he helps Michael stay off drugs. Be a coach, a mentor, a volunteer. No matter what it is, you have something to offer. Log on to helpyourcommunity.org or call 877-KIDS-313 and be an influence on the kids in your community. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Never give up on your dream. Hi, my name's Clay Anderson, Nebraska's first astronaut. Watching astronauts walk on the moon made me want to give up my paper route in baling hay for the chance to walk in space. I worked hard in school and after college landed a job with NASA. I applied to be an astronaut 15 times. That's right, 15. And my dream was realized when NASA chose me to fly in space. So work hard in school and never give up. America needs you to be the innovators and explorers of tomorrow.
Over there's the water. Whoosh, whoosh. And look at all this stuff I'm standing on. It's called sand, and it's everywhere.
This woman may sound silly to you and me.
It's made up of little tiny pieces of rocks. Teeny little pieces of rocks.
But to her 2-year-old son exploring the world around him, she makes perfect sense.
How does it feel when you touch the sand? Is it warm? Uh-huh. It's hard to hold in your hand, isn't it?
Learning starts long before school does, and children are naturally curious.